Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I've got Jon Jay with me. What's going on, Jon?
What's happening? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Well, I wrote down some stuff here. This is pretty cool. So, 2006 MLB draft to the St. Louis Cardinals. Played for the Cardinals, Padres, Cubs, Royals, Diamondbacks, White Sox, and Angels. That's a heck of a run, man. Third highest through 2020 with fielding percentage as a center fielder. That was cool. World Series champ 2011, which we're going to talk about. 2011 through 2013, you were the record holder for the NL with 245 games without an error. Nice work. You are a business owner, a husband, a dad, a skateboarder, and one hell of a golfer.
Getting there.
You working on the game?
I'm working on the game, yeah. And my tennis game, too.
Oh, nice. Which one are you liking more right now?
I'm liking both of them, but I think tennis I'm going to progress a lot faster in, and golf's golf. It takes a little bit more time.
Because golf, you didn't start until when?
I didn't start. I mean, I've always picked up clubs and went to charity events or whatnot, but probably this year is when I started taking it a little bit more serious.
Nice. Well, very fun. So every podcast, I always ask people what helped make them the man they are today, man they are today. And so I'd like to start with that with you. What's helped make you the man you are today?
For sure, my family. It starts with my grandparents. My grandparents left Cuba under turmoil in the late 50s under their revolution. So they just taught me what hard work, sacrifice looks like. They picked up at 33 years old. Took my mom with them and just went to a new country, had to learn a new language and start all over. So that's always kind of my reminder when things are going, tough in my world. Yeah. And, when things aren't working out the way I kind of want them to, I kind of take a step back and I think of like, how my grandparents handled the situation where they've been through it all. So they're always on my mind. I think about them every day and I wouldn't be where I'm at without them for sure.
Did they talk about that? Like what that's like? I mean, just to pick up and go to another country, that had to be scary, man.
It's something that was super scary. And honestly, they didn't talk about it much because I think it hurt them so much to talk about it. And then, they unfortunately passed away, a couple years ago, but towards the end, I kind of started getting a little bit more out of them of what they went through and the stories and all that stuff. So it was just very interesting where they kind of, they had that part of their life. They kind of just blocked it off so they won't have to think about it anymore. But it was definitely super interesting where, they had a good life. They lived great and then had to pick up and start all over again. So that's something that I think about every single day.
Yeah, I mean, new home, new friends, new language, everything. It's crazy. So, but they got to see your career then, right? If it was just a few years ago?
Yeah, it was great. My grandparents were my biggest supporters. Growing up, they made sure I was where I needed to be all the time. Yeah. My grandfather, he woke up at 5 a.m, worked, he was a handyman. He focused on air conditioning, but he could do it all. But that's where I really saw what hard work was. And I think one of the early life lessons I got was, it's teacher work day. There's no school. You're 7 years old. You're thinking, oh, this is gonna be fun. And then it's like, oh no, there's no one that can watch you. So you're gonna go to work with your grandfather. And so I'd get up at 5 a.m. with him, and he would tell me all these tools in Spanish, and I'd bring him the wrong one, and he'd yell at me or whatnot. And then that's where I kind of saw. I was like, man, I got to take this work ethic and just apply it to whatever it is in life. And I've been able to do that, and that's the life lesson that I take with me every single day.
Yeah. When did you know baseball was the thing for you?
Honestly, I'm different with that. Baseball, I loved baseball growing up. I mean, I always loved
Played
baseball.
It your whole life, T-ball,
Played baseball my whole life. I was fortunate enough, I played soccer growing up. I skateboarded, I rollerblade. I pretty much could hang in pretty much every sport just from growing up playing them. But baseball, I was just always gravitated to it. And really, my goal was really just to get to college. Like, I was like, in high school, I was like, how am I going to pay for college? I'm like, all right, baseball is going to be my ticket to get a scholarship for college. And then, once University of Miami was my dream school, I was able to go there. And then from there is when I really saw, I was like, oh man, I'm playing with some of the top players in the country. These guys are all getting drafted. I saw kids that I grew up with getting drafted and playing in the big leagues. I was like, hey, maybe I can do this too. So I think I was just always so locked in the present that I never thought of the future. Yeah. And I think that's something that really helped me out in my career.
So went to Miami. How are we feeling about the football team?
I'm loving what the football team's doing right now. Big win over Notre Dame. But just honestly, I just love, it's like any city, right? When your team's doing well, everyone's happy, everyone's excited, right. Everyone's wearing the colors proudly. So, I'm always wearing orange and green no matter what. It could be, middle of summer, it could be the winter, it doesn't matter where I'm at, but to see them doing well and just to see everybody pumped up, it's got me excited.
Yeah, it was awesome. What they paid him, $10 million or something?
Yeah, making some good money over there. Making some good money over there.
College quarterback making some cash. So let's see. talk about, I want to talk about the business side because obviously, very entrepreneurial, all the stuff that you're doing, and we'll obviously get into some baseball stuff. But talk about what I saw in my research I thought was cool is that you knew there was going to be life after baseball, and you would travel and you go to certain cities. Say you're in New York, you kind of had these lists of people you would go and chat with and spend time with, or if you're in LA or whatever. So talk about that mindset when you think about your entrepreneurial side and wanting to go more and went back to school, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so growing up, I grew up in a household where all the women were educators. So both my grandmothers were teachers. My mom was a teacher as well. My wife ended up being a teacher for a little bit, but education was something that was very, very, it was put in our face, and it was very important. So growing up, grades are always important, schools are always important, and I was just always drawn to business, and I was always just fascinated and curious on how people were successful, how people took care of their families, how people set up their families. So something that was always in the back of my mind. And then, playing baseball, I got to meet so many people. Since I was in high school, I knew kids from every single neighborhood. And then going to college, I'm playing at UM and we're playing FSU. And, I grew up playing against this player or another player. I remember going to the ACC tournament and my head coach, Jim Morris, telling me, like, John, how are you talking to everybody here? Like, we're trying to beat these guys. I'm like 3. I grew up with these guys. These are my friends. Like, when we get on the field, I want to beat them. So I've always kind of had this, network of people everywhere. And then, as I got into the big leagues, just took advantage of the schedule, right? We'd fly into all these different cities and, I'd meet people with my agency. I was with CAA. I'm with CAA. Yeah. And it just opened up so many doors for me. So, any opportunity I have, I've always been curious, and I'll just meet up with people. And I put my head down and did that for a long time. And then now it's pretty cool to have kind of a Rolodex when I go to every city of people and business people, all walks of life, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. So talk about the CAA thing. I mean, and the agencies and all that stuff. And so what's that like for you? Is it they just basically ask you questions and say, what do you want to go with life? And then they try to help you find other things. And that's what they're doing with you, or how's that work?
I think from the beginning, they just really helped. My main guy there was Nez Boleto. Obviously, there's a great team of so many people behind the scenes, but Nez really just taught me how the game worked, taught me the business side of the baseball, and not to get so emotional about certain situations sometimes. I remember a story in the minor leagues. I think it was 2009, and I had a pretty good big league camp, and some outfielders went down in the middle of the season, and I was upset that I wasn't the guy that got called up, and I just didn't understand how the business side worked of it. So I sulked, and the next day he's like, "All right, you done sulking? All right, here's how this works. They need to put you on the roster, and they're not gonna have to do that to the offseason, so you're not gonna go anywhere this year." And it kind of just always, he was there to put me in my place and hold me accountable until how things worked. And then, early on, I'd go to the office. I remember when the LA office opened in 2006, and I remember walking up and down with him and meeting the football agents and the hockey agents and the basketball agents, and then getting to St. Louis, and the football agency was actually based in St. Louis. Right. So I got to meet Tom Condon and just meet all these brilliant minds and start relationships with them. So that's kind of how I did these things, and just meeting different people. And when I'd go to the office in New York, just walk up and down and meet entertainment agents and music agents and whatnot. And then as the years went on, I was kind of the guy where the agency knew they could hit me up and like, hey, some actor needs tickets to a game in San Diego, and like, all right, no questions asked. What do you need? Batting practice. Here you go. So I just kind of did that all the time, and like I said, now 15 years later, it's kind of cool how life's full circle and some of these things come back.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Tom Condon, man, people don't know that he's a big dog in the football world.
Yeah, he's a pioneer. He's a pioneer in the football agency. Yeah. As a player, he did so much for the union as well, and then as an agent. Yeah. That's
awesome. Talk about the gift of high expectations. I mean, I would assume you have them for yourself and then also for your teammates. What's the power behind that?
Oh, it's huge. And I feel like, it makes you accountable. It holds you to a higher standard. And I think since I was a kid, I kind of assumed that role wherever I was. And I think I was the guy that, you're in middle school on the basketball team, and, the coach is giving you a compliment. And although everyone's like, oh, of course he's giving you a compliment. And it's like, I'm just doing things the right way, right? What's the right way? Yeah. I'm just doing things that are asked of me. I'm not going out and beyond. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. So I think that's kind of I kind of like being on that pedestal where like being looked at as a guy that's supposed to do things the right way, and it holds you to a higher standard, and it just brings the best out of you. And I think you could use pressure in two ways. You could use it to bring the things best out of you, or you can fold. And I think when I'm in these pressure situations, I've been trained since I was a kid to kind of prevail and just figure out a way to come out on top of them from these situations.
When you think about the high expectations, when it wasn't going well, what did you do to get yourself out of that, pity party or sulking or whatever you were doing?
I think just putting my head down and working, really, and just being realistic. I think the first time this really happened to me was my freshman year in high school. I had a pretty good summer the summer before. went to a new school, didn't know anybody, and I made the freshman team only, right? And there's a lot of expectations where I thought, man, I'm going to be on JV, or I should. I hate to say the word should, but that was my mindset then. And I didn't make JV, and I was on the freshman team, and I said, okay, what can I do? I can complain, I can transfer. There's so many different things I can do, but no, this is the school I want to be at. So I started working out in the mornings. I told my mom, like, hey, I need to get bigger, stronger, faster. I want to start working out in the morning. So that's kind of what I've done everywhere I've gone. Where when I got to college, the same way, like, hey, I want to play here, but how am I going to play? Just put my head down and work. So I think anytime things are going wrong or things aren't going the way I put my head down and just go to work.
Yeah. Were you always the guy that, some athletes, you hear stories, which I love these, that they always batted cleanup or third and played shortstop and did whatever, the point guard, the quarterback. And then there's some, it's like, man, I had no idea I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. Like, I was never the best on my team. Where were you at with that?
Yeah, I was never the best. So I grew up around a lot of talent in Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cool to look back now and see so many guys that made it to the big leagues from kind of my era of playing. And I was never the biggest, strongest, fastest, or best player on my team. I've never been the best player on any team I've been on since I was little. But I think it was just, the little things, intangibles, just doing all the little things right and just sticking to it. And, I've seen a lot of guys that are super talented, but they just didn't have discipline or they didn't have the dedication. So I never wanted that to be my case. I wanted to look at myself in the mirror one day and say, you know what? I exhausted every opportunity. I did everything I can. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. And that's kind of what I do in everything in life. I dive in, I ask, I'm curious, I reach, I try to seek people that are experts in whatever I'm doing and see if it works out for me. If it doesn't, I move on and keep it going.
Nice. Talk about through your own lens of yourself, but also the players you've played with. You've played with some of the best players ever, right? And how did you guys and you and them lead yourselves on and off the field to be great at what you do?
I think it's just having a standard, right, of accountability, right, like on and off the field, right? Like, whatever you do off the field is going to affect you on the field and vice versa. So I think, when you surround yourself with great people, it brings out the best of you. And, I always bring up the story of our mutual friend, Daniel Descalzo, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I don't know where I would be without him. He's my unsung hero where, when we were coming up in the minor leagues here, like, we're just like-minded individuals and we're totally different. We're totally, like, once you get to know both of us, like, man, how these guys, they're great friends and they're totally different. But, we just had that drive, and he held me accountable, right? Where, if things weren't going my way, I could look at his side and he'd be positive, or I could do the vice versa. And then, but that's so important to have that group, that team behind you that you can rely on. And I still do it to this day, right? Where, if I'm feeling a certain way, I know exactly who I need to call to get me back to where I need to get to, whether it's, family stuff, dad stuff, marital stuff, whatever it is, financial stuff. Like I have some go-to people I can talk to that can kind of get me out of that funk and get me on the right track.
It's I think knowing you and Daniel, I think there's trust and respect there, right? With those two things, which are huge. But I think it's also you're both students of the game, right? Would you agree with that?
For sure. I think the trust and respect is the first part where that's where, that's when you want to be around that type of person. And then, being students of the game and loving the game where we can talk and we can give our opinions and go back and forth and no feelings are hurt. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Where a lot of times we have conversations or we seek advice and then we don't hear what we want to hear exactly, and then we kind of get turned off from it. But I think that's
pissed off. Be like, I don't want to hear that.
I think that's something that's pretty cool with Daniel and myself. We're like, those times in my life and my career where he's looked at me like, hey man, like you need to clean it up. Like we gotta get better at this. And like, all right, you know what? I got you. So like he's the one guy in my life where like if he says something right away, like no questions asked, I'm like, I got you. Like I gotta do it.
That's amazing. Amazing how that comes into your life. What role, if any, did visualization play in your performance? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think I tie that back to there's so many things similar from business and sports, right? Sure. And so I think about visualization, how it's played out in my life of thinking, okay, this client meeting or, thinking about whatever meeting I have later this week. Did it play out like that for you in baseball? For
sure. I always just visualize myself. It's weird. So when I was a kid, I always knew I was going to do something special. I just didn't know what it would be. Right. And I just kind of put my head down and like, I was like, all right, I'm going to be special at something, but just, be present and dominate the moment. So visualization in baseball was always great. Right? I visualized myself being on the varsity team in high school. But I think I would visualize something and then like take steps back of, all right, if I visualize this, like how am I going to get there? And then that's where like those baby steps would go in between. But I'll definitely see myself, in high school when I'd go watch a UM game, I'd close my eyes and say, all right, I'm standing in center field right now and I'm playing. All right, but like, what do I need to do to get to that point right there? And I think that's something that I've just kind of done in my life, and I continue to do now.
Was it ever a goal to win the World Series? I mean, I think, as a kid, we always do that in the backyard, right? Jon Jay hit a ball to win the World Series. But did you see that, talking about visualization?
Absolutely. I think that's something that was special coming up in this organization with the Cardinals. And then let's take a step back, right? So even my high school, we won the state championship my senior year. So I say at that time, at 18 years old, helping lead the team to a state championship is like the ultimate prize, right? So
in a huge state with a lot of baseball,
a lot of pedigree, a lot of tradition. So that gave me the confidence. And I go to UM, right? We're a perennial top 5 program, and we went to Omaha twice, didn't win it, but it had that taste, that feeling. So I think I was always just drawn to winning. Like I played this game to win. I didn't play it for any other reason. And then when we were in the minor leagues in the Cardinals, we were kind of stuck in the minor leagues for a little bit longer than we wanted to, but we kind of understood, man, this team has a lot of veterans. They won in 06 right before us. Like, hey, if we stick this out, we have a chance to win in this team, because we just got to show that we're worthy of winning and that we can be winning players. So I think it's something that we did visualize and we talked about, and it's cool that it happened so quickly. Like, we didn't think it was going to happen, my second year in the big leagues, but it's something that happened, and it's something that drives me, and I'm about winning. Like, in anything I do, I want to win.
Yeah. I think the coolest thing about that group of guys, man, how many of you came through the Cardinal system? That's what, you grew up in the minor leagues together, and then to come win the World Series. What, you, Freeze, Descalzo, Craig Allen.
Jaime Garcia, Fernando Salas. There's a bunch of guys. And the cool thing with that is, like, when you see the longevity of guys' careers, it's pretty cool, where, like, a lot of guys played 10 years. A lot of guys were all-stars. A lot of guys did a lot of good things. And then a lot of guys are still working in baseball and still impacting the game. Alan Craig's working for the San Diego Padres. Obviously here in St. Louis. Daniel's here as well. Freeze has been offered, every job you can imagine.
Yeah.
Skip's, doing his thing. Obviously gave me my shot. So it's pretty cool to see the impact of these guys that we're around that have just had such a big impact in the game, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So we're going to come back to some business stuff, but let's talk about 2011 for a little bit. So give us a little snapshot of that season and how that thing went down, and what you were thinking coming into October.
Yeah. So 2010 was my first year up. And it was a great learning experience. A lot of good, a lot of bad, a little bit of everything. But then, coming into 2011, I got to play a lot in 2010. Then coming down into 2011, we had signed Lance Berkman, and we had really just retooled the team. We brought in like Ryan Terrio, Joe Laird, like we brought in a lot of like interesting personalities, Nick Punto. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. And then we knew our role from the beginning. I knew I was going to be on the bench. I was going to come in for defense, and I was just trying to stick in the big leagues. I was just trying to prove myself every single day. So the beginning of the year, I didn't get to play as much. I was kind of the fourth outfielder, and I was sprinkled in. I got some playing time, but then it was really cool the second half, really, where I was just a starting center fielder every single day. And when you look at that team at the break, right, we got Rafael Furcal, which is a guy that I idolized growing up. Then you sprinkle in obviously Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina, Matt Holliday. I mean, it was just amazing to be a young guy and be around all these dudes that are like all-stars and Hall of Famers, and just to watch them, at a young age. And that's when I really started paying attention. Like, these guys have families, something that I wanted. I just started watching the way they went off about their business on and off the field, and I'd just ask 1,000 questions every single day. I was never scared to ask questions, so that was pretty cool. And then, obviously Daniel's there, we lived together, so that was super cool, where we'd come home after games and talk about the game and just try to get ourselves better. And then, we obviously went on this remarkable run where nobody thought we were going to do anything. And even, I remember Chris Carpenter had a big speech after the Mets series and just kind of like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen. And then we caught fire, and then, the rest is history on how everything happened. It's pretty cool.
It's amazing. That was the year that Carpenter did wasn't he gave up a triple the first at bat, I think, and then you guys ended up winning 1-0 against the Phillies.
We came up 1-0, yeah. So Rafael Furcal hit a triple.
Yeah.
Skip hit a double. Sorry, Rafi hit a double. Skip hit a triple.
Yeah,
I believe it was. And then we won 1-0.
Yeah, and that was the sliding play, touch first base.
Obviously, we played in the World Series, and that was amazing. But that Game 5 against the Phillies was one of the most remarkable games. When you look at the talent on both sides that were on the field at the time, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So that was definitely one of those crazy series.
So I watched last night about 15 minutes. There was a 15-minute recap on YouTube of Game 6. So I was at the game. It was my wife and I's actual 10th wedding anniversary. Which, a little bit of backstory there, when they won it in 06, we were there. That was our 5th wedding anniversary, and this is our 10th wedding anniversary. So we're like, all right, let's just keep going on our anniversary. We're bringing good luck here to the Cardinals. And I took my dad, we took her dad, And I've never seen them jump so high in my life than I did at game 6. So obviously, talk a little bit about game 6, man, because watching it last night, I was still nervous and I knew the outcome. It was incredible. Yeah, greatest game ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really was. And when you look at the game in the beginning, right, it was super sloppy. Like, the balls were being tossed everywhere. Fly balls were being dropped. It was just an ugly game. And then really just, it's the playoffs. Every swing, every moment matters. And then for us to be able to come back the way we did, and then obviously sets us up with the David Freese home run. That's like, this is a guy that we came up together.
Right.
We'd hang out all the time. He's one of our boys. So, like, I'll never forget, like, I was in the hole and watching him hit that home run and, like, just jumping out there. And, like, I can't even reenact my jump because it was just pure joy jump. But, that was one of the most special things. And then, obviously the big hit that Descalso got, which was so cool. I'm on deck and we're down 2 runs and I'm just like, man, D's up here right now. And then he had like a 7-pitch at bat, got a hit, inspired me. So it was just such a cool moment when you really look at all those moments. And then I think something that I love about that 2011 World Series is you can look at everybody on the roster and you can point and say, all right, this guy did this guy did that, this guy did this, like, and how important that whole roster was to win the World Series, right? Like, I remember Westbrook came in and threw a clean inning where none of our pitchers could do that, and he hadn't pitched in 5 days. So, like, and he got the W. So it's so cool to, when you look back and just look at all these some special moments that guys had.
Yeah. So 10th inning, you're on base. You scored the tying run. If you've rewatched that recently, but man, your slide was like forever. It was smooth. You get up. You didn't like dance your way to the dugout. You had a little high step, a little hop
in between Dion there.
Yeah. So talk about that moment, man. Like, when you're running the base, you know what's on the line. Like, what are you thinking? Are you even thinking?
I'm not thinking anything. And I think that goes back to what we talked about, like our training, right? And just like, I trained so hard. I worked so hard to put myself in all these situations that might come up in games that way when I was out there, I was just free and clear and just playing. Yeah. So it was almost, I was just floating on the bases. I felt like I was on a skateboard, just took a turn and just like cruising through. But
because that was the Berkman hit, right?
That was the Berkman hit up the middle. Yeah, Berkman hit up the middle. So yeah, that was one of those moments where you're literally floating out there.
How was you as an outfielder? And as good of an outfielder as you were, what are you thinking about the Cruz play? I mean, you look at that, it's obviously he's not looking for the wall and he misjudges it probably, whatever. It's in the moment. Talk about that as an outfielder, man. What was he thinking? What was going on there?
Yeah, that's one of those plays where, if it's me out there, like, I'm doing whatever it takes to catch that ball. Yeah. Obviously he's a great player, he's a phenomenal guy. But it's just one of those things. It's sports, right? Things happen out there, but it's something that, like, I've learned from for going on now in my career, and then as a coach now, like, it's one of these things that, like, I'll bring that stuff up of like, hey, we got to prepare mentally during batting practice and during practice so that when these things happen in the games, there's no excuse, because these things can cost, can swing a series. I could be sitting right here saying I'm not a World Series champion,
right.
So it's just, you learn from these situations and try to help the next generation and guys that come next.
So we know Freese went to his buddy's house and slept on the couch that night. What did you guys do?
Game six. No, just went back to the hotel. We were actually staying in a hotel at that moment.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, we were staying at the hotel, and we were staying at the Lumiere Casino at that time. Yeah, we were checking in, checking out the whole time because our lease was up, and we were young. We didn't know what we were doing, so I think we had shipped our cars home and everything too. We were just.
You don't know when the season's over.
Yeah, it was one of those deals where, like, if we won a series, like, we'd go to the mall and, like, hey, we won a series, let's go buy some new clothes for the next series. And, like, we just kept that going for all of October, so that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And so Game 7, you come back. I think I left downtown about 1:30 or 2 in the morning that night. Just pure joy. I had to go to a golf tournament the next day, Game 7. So talk about Game 7. When did you kind of get the feeling like, holy crap, this is going to happen? I mean, you had a big lead pretty much the whole game, right?
Yeah, I think after Game 6, our confidence was just through the roof, and knowing our guy Chris Carpenter was going to be on the mound, like, just the stars lined up for us. And then I remember they came up on top early on, and then Kreger actually hit the home run to put us up 3-2. And then after Kreger hit that home run, I was like, all right, this is our game. Like, we have to win this game. And we were able to come up on top, which was a surreal moment.
Another moment last night watching it, the camera does zoom over to you and you see you just screaming coming in, man. And talk about that. You're jumping on the pile with your boys and hanging out. What's that like, and where'd you go afterwards?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So the first out of the 9th inning was the ground ball to Descalso.
Yeah.
The second out was a fly ball to me, and then the last out was the deep fly ball to Kreger.
I never put those three together.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So Kreger's running in, and I'm just looking at him running in, and just like,
wow,
we're World Series champions, and just piled on and stuff. It was cool, and then it was pretty cool. Two of I have a pretty good friend group at home from a long time, and two of my best friends from that group. Literally after Game 6, they called me. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna fly. We got a 6-game flight. We're coming tomorrow." I'm like, "Let's do it. Let's go." And so they ended up coming. I had my parents in town, my sister. I mean, just my whole family was there. So to be able to win the World Series and then celebrate with our friends, obviously Descalzo and all our teammates, but then to have my family in the clubhouse with me was one of the coolest moments. And then I have a video of my two best friends. We're on the field. It's like 1:45 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and they're running the bases with the World Series sign. It was one of those moments that was incredible. So we partied inside, and then I remember at the time then my first couple years here, I had a little limo hookup. So I used to have a limo guy that I would hook him up with tickets all the time, and then anytime friends came in town, like they get picked up, and it was like they're like, dude, you have a limo guy? What's going on here? I'm like, don't worry about it. So I remember we had the limo waiting for us outside the clubhouse after the game. And we ended up going out, night in the town, and we had a police escort to go out on the night in the town, which is unbelievable. And then,
a lot of you go together, or is this just your family and friends?
No, this was a lot. It was the players and wives and girlfriends at the time, and we were all in there. And then we went out, and then we took it. We lived at point 400 at that point at that time behind our right field, and then we had an after party there, kept it going, and then the next day I remember the Saints were in town playing the Rams. So that was pretty cool because Jimmy Graham's a good friend of mine, went to UM. And Jimmy was on the Saints, so I got to see him on the field, and that was pretty cool. Had slept like an hour, and whatnot. So it was just an amazing time.
Did it end up at Mike Shannon's?
We might have ended up at Mike Shannon's too, for sure. That was what a great spot.
Like,
what a spot!
The guys are downstairs. I'm like, holy crap!
Yeah, that was one of my favorite spots ever. That was awesome. So many good memories there.
Great
for
place.
Sure.
Great place. So talk about the time you got the phone call and they tell you you're going to the major leagues. What was that like?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. We were in Oklahoma City playing, and I get the call that, hey, you're going to be a big leaguer. You're going up to the big leagues. So, and honestly, that's once I knew I had a chance in baseball, like that's all I wanted was just to be able to say I was a big leaguer, right? Like just to be able to say, hey, one day I was a big leaguer, and it was pretty cool. I get called up, and we're playing the Braves, which is the team that I idolized growing up. So it was pretty cool to do that. And then my first day, I remember I got in like in the third inning. And Carp was pitching. He had like 75 pitches. So like, oh no, Carp's not gonna. He's gonna hit for himself. He's gonna stay in the game. I'm like, all right, cool. Then next thing you know, like, hey, you're hitting, kid. And I'm like, wow. And I faced Tim Hudson. Oh, wow. Quick little strikeout, but I could say I was a big leaguer, so that was cool.
That's awesome. Who was your first hit off?
My first hit was off of Johnny Cueto, which ironically, I got a double down the left field line, ground rule double, which is kind of like my that's my staple. Like since I was a kid, that was like the hit that I could do whenever I wanted. Yeah. And then it's funny because then I ended up hitting my first home run off Johnny Cueto as well, which is crazy. And then I think I didn't hit a lot of homers, as we all know, but I think I ended up hitting 3 home runs against Johnny Cueto, which is pretty crazy. Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah. He's the one, if I remember, that was before you, I think. That's the big fight.
I was there for that. That was my first big brawl. Probably the biggest brawl I've been a part of. Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
That one was like that ended. Who was that?
Jason LaRue catcher. Yeah, that's when there were some real brawls going on.
Actual punches thrown,
kicking, just you name it, it was there.
What is there any punches thrown nowadays? There's not.
There's not punches thrown. No,
it's just kind of
different. Everyone knows everybody nowadays. It's more just everyone's out there and acting brave, and that's it.
That's funny. How do you think your leadership's changed over your career?
I think it's like anything, you adapt and you adjust. I think as a player, leading's different because you're in the trenches with guys, right? So they get to see you working, they get to see you doing different things, right? Where as a coach, I'm talking a lot about situations. I'm not necessarily going out there and doing these things. So I think that's a little bit different because you get more buy-in when you're there with the guys. But I've been around a lot of great leaders, a lot of great people, and it's been pretty cool just to kind of like see myself evolve, and things that frustrated me before don't frustrate me now, and just trying to help out. And I think a lot of stuff with leadership that's helped me too is being a dad, right? Like I'm leading my kids. And I think that's helped me a lot with the players. And I think being around the players has helped me a lot with my kids as well. Yeah,
that's awesome. Preparation for big moments. So, again, think about the business person listening to this, and they're preparing for a big meeting tomorrow, right? And what did you do to prepare yourself? And was there a difference between, a playoff game and a Tuesday night game in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I tried to prepare myself the same for everything. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I got from Tony La Russa playing for him was, you go to spring training and it's like, hey, you have to make the team, or hey, we're trying to win every single game. And if you can practice these good habits, then when that big moment comes, it's second nature, right? So I felt like during the season I had a good routine. I was locked in, would study, do everything I needed to do. Where I wanted to walk away from a game every single day knowing that, hey, you know what, I could have struck it out 4 times and made an error, but I took ground balls, I shagged fly balls, and I hit in the cage. I did everything I needed to do. and that way I can look at myself in the mirror and have peace with it. So it's the same thing I've kind of done with everything, and even in the coaching world now, right? Like I'm in charge of the outfielders. I help out with base running. I help out in a couple different roles, but I try to make sure I do my review every day. I watch the pitcher. I do all these little things. That way, when somebody asks me a question, I'm prepared and I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Talk about self-talk for you. Let's say you did have those 4 strikeouts. What's that self-talk to Jon Jay, and either in the dugout, locker room, at home, you're going to bed that night? What are we doing?
Yeah, just remaining positive, right? Trying to find a way to stay positive, and that might be, calling my Rolodex of somebody that I know super positive. I need to hear from them, or it might be, reading the Bible, going to some Proverbs, and just getting my head out like that way, or just so. I think the biggest thing is just having systems in place so that when something does go wrong or doesn't go the way you want it to have something in place that you can go to. Yeah. The same thing when things are going well, right? Like there's times where things are going well and we're super excited, we're super joyful, and I think you should talk about those moments too. So I have my people that I'll call, and I have my buddies and I'll call, and they're like, "Hey, dude, you already told me that story." I'm like, "Dude, I'm just excited. I need to let you know, like,
you need to talk about it.
Just locking this new business or something, or investing in something." So. Yeah. But I think self-talk is big, right? And just being positive, remaining positive. I think music's a big key with that too. I'm a big music guy, so I know the music that's going to put me in a good mood and stuff. So, but I think the biggest thing is like that self-talk is huge, right? Because we can go 2 ways with it. We can just go down a spiral, or it could uplift us. And I think it goes back to relying on my work too, which is understand like, hey, if I work hard, I put my head down, everything's going to even out. Everything's going to come back around.
Yeah, and there's always going to be good days and bad days, and just understanding that.
Oh, that's the biggest thing, right? It's like no days, it's not going to all be perfect all the time, and stuff's going to go wrong, right? So just understanding that when stuff does goes wrong, how do I handle it? That's it.
What's the best piece of advice you think you got? It was like an aha moment, whether that was from a coach early on or a player during your career. Was there something there that was like, oh, wow, that I take that one with me the rest of my life?
I think it goes back to my grandparents, my grandfather, just that hard work pays off. If you put your head down and you do things the right way, it's going to, life's going to reward you. The world's going to reward you. So I think that's just kind of the model I go through. I try to be a good person to everybody I meet. And, you never know what somebody's going through. And I think that's that lesson that I learned from my grandparents.
So we'll talk some baseball stuff, but we talked about this when we were golfing a few weeks ago. What are the odds of me standing up there in right now, 47-year-old dude, had a stellar high school baseball career. What's the chances of me hitting a Major League Baseball?
With no practice, it's very slim. Very, very slim.
Because I asked these guys what was harder, playing golf or playing baseball, and it was pretty quickly it was baseball.
Yeah, I just think because baseball, there's so many factors you can't control, and that's why the game just drives you crazy, right? Like I could do everything right, my timing can be perfect, I could square up a ball, and then there's a center fielder that just decides to run to the wall and make a diving catch, you know? Or, there's just so many factors you can't control. So I'd rather do something that I can control. And if I feel like if I spent enough hours and enough dedication in it, then I would be able to, come out okay with it. Yeah. But baseball, there's just so many different factors that go into it.
I think you're being nice here. I think you guys said it was 0% chance.
Well, probably 0%. Yeah. I mean, you got a 4-seamer just doing one of these and they'll slider off of that.
My problem would be I'd be scared to death.
Yeah, I mean, we see guys every day, right? We see guys out there that are practicing every day, putting in the work and doing it. And you see them and like, hey, man, does this guy even know how to play baseball?
Right.
It's like, this game's it's a hard game.
Most frustrating sport, though, is?
I'd say golf now, a little bit of golf, but I'm taking it light. I'm not
You're not getting mad at yourself.
I don't get mad at myself. I can't. But I'm lucky, right? Like the way I look at it, and it's kind of messed up, but I'm like, dude, I did this in baseball, so all this other stuff, I'm not even worried about it.
Right.
It's like I'm just having fun right now. Yeah. Like so. But I do truly believe though that if I would have spent time from I was a kid with a couple different sports and just spent that same dedication I did in baseball, I feel like I could have had some success.
Yeah. Did you? You said soccer was the other
soccer was a big one, yeah, but it wasn't big in Miami back then. Like we didn't have all these academies, and like now there's soccer fields everywhere, and it's awesome. It's so cool to see. But I feel like I was more talented in soccer than I was in baseball.
Okay. And didn't your wife play soccer?
Yeah, my wife played soccer at the University of Miami, so she's a St. Louis girl. So she went to St. Joe, and then she went to Miami to play soccer, and that's how we met.
Yeah, which is crazy to think that, right? That she's a St. Louis girl. You get drafted by the Cardinals. I mean, how cool is that? Yeah,
super cool.
All right, toughest pitcher you ever faced?
Oh, Aroldis Chapman.
Really?
That's an easy one. I don't have to think about that one.
That was pretty quick.
That was super quick.
Yeah. He threw pretty quick.
Yeah. I think I'm.
Was it just the gas that he was throwing, or
gas, the deception? Like one will come by your head, and the next one will be down and away. So I think I'm 1 for 11 with 10 strikeouts. And maybe a broken bat hit against him. Yeah, so it was a broken bat hit. So I actually had the bat saved so that
that's cool.
Yeah.
Who was the pitcher you like? Oh, I like this when he's pitching.
Honestly, I have to go back and look at all the stuff, but I had some pretty good success against Johnny Cueto, which is kind of cool. Yeah. But yeah, I gotta I think Jeff Samardzija was another guy I had some pretty good success against. But yeah, I don't know. I gotta look in the archives.
Yeah, there you go. Biggest hit that sticks out to you for yourself?
For me personally, I mean, it's gonna be the Game 6 hit.
Yeah.
Game 6, getting getting the hit in Game 6 to extend the game and be part of the World Series for sure.
Yep, that's a big deal. Talk about a few people here. Albert Pujols. Talk about him.
Phenomenal person. I mean, I got to watch this guy when he was the best in the game, and I literally studied him closely. Like I just watch him, and the one thing I saw from him, and this applies to the business world and stuff I use now, is he didn't waste a minute in his day. From the moment he got to the field, it was like everything was timed out perfectly. Like it was unbelievable, and it was like get to the field, do media for 30 minutes, then go in the hot tub and stretch out, and then get worked on by the trainers, and then go watch film for an hour, and then go hit in the cage, and then come back and take a shower, eat, and then go hit again. Like it was unbelievable to watch him, and I got to see that firsthand. I'm like, man, this guy he has it down. It was pretty cool.
So another level for him.
Another level, and a lot of times, right, we see successful people and we see the finished product, right?
Right.
But to see him behind the scenes, it was like, I mean, we'd have a day game on a Sunday, and on before the game or Saturday night, he'd have 100 autograph requests, bats, balls, cleats, whatever, and he spent 30 minutes signing everything for everybody, sending it to the next thing, and like it was just, I mean, he literally was a machine. It was super cool.
Unreal. Was he social?
Yeah, social enough. I mean,
But he knew why he was there to do a job, right?
He was there to do a job, and he always had time to help us whenever we needed, which is amazing. With all the stuff he had going on, to be the best in the game, you got to remember, he's the guy, like, I can go 0 for 4. After the game, nobody cares.
Right.
He's 0 for 4, 2 for 4, 3 for 4. Every single day, there's going to be 30 people in front of his locker, and he has to answer questions. And that's the stuff that kind of gets you. So I always say in my career, like, I'm happy things worked out, but I would never want to be the superstar player. I mean, there's too much pressure. Yeah. You walk on the street, everything, it's your fault. Or it's either good or bad. I'm like, I'm good. I like my role, and I'm good with where I'm at. That's right.
So when you would come in that locker room after the game, you obviously knew where he was at, but there was just tons of people always by him.
For sure. Requests, and people want to meet him, and anytime anybody's in town or whatnot.
Celebrities in town.
Celebrity. He's the main attraction for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talk about Yadier Molina.
Oh man, what an animal! He's just another guy. Like I was so lucky to be around him since I was a youngster, and I learned so much. I mean, defensively, I got to give him a lot of my credit for what I was able to do on the field.
Really? Why is that? Sorry to interrupt. Why is that?
His preparation was the best, right? Let's take away the physical tools, right? The arm and just the blocking skills and just everything, the hitting. That's the preparation. I mean, he knew your weakness. He knew your strength. He knew how to read swings. He knew his pitchers. He knew the stadium. I mean, a funny story with Yadier, we talked about it the other day when he was here. Remember one time Walker was throwing in New York, and Walker was was that 4-seam sinker changeup guy. But that day he threw like 40 curveballs, and I remember going to Yadier after the game like, "Hey, why so many curveballs today?" And it's like, he's like, the way the wind was blowing in Citi Field, something was happening where wherever his curveball was going, the wind would just pick it up and just drop it right there. So the guys had no chance on his curveball. So Yadier was just the next level.
Nobody else is thinking that.
No one's thinking that. He'd watch me, and you saw him, right? He'd make his calls, and he'd give you one of these, like, knowing a cutter in's coming, they're going to hook it, or like, he'd look at me in a 3-1 count, and he knew they were going to throw a fastball down the middle, and he'd kind of look at me and be like, hey, back up 2 steps. I'd back up 2 steps. Next thing you know, I'm jumping at the wall, making a great play. And I was like, so I saw him in when he'd watch film, I'd kind of watch film with him and learn how to read swings, and that's the same thing I do now, right? In the outfield, I'm teaching our guys, like, hey, this hitter, I always say, you want to know what a hitter does early in the count with a fastball, late in the count with a fastball, early in the count with a breaking ball, late in the count with a breaking ball. So those are the things I learned from Yadier, and these are the things I'm still passing along in the game now, which is pretty cool.
Unbelievable. Cool story. My son, who actually is 18 today, was dressed up as Yadier for Halloween. We had neck tattoos and everything, and
he went in. I like it.
He went all in. He was all Yachty, and Yachty was our neighbor, and at the time, and so we go up, ring the doorbell. They had you guys had just lost, I think against the Mets. Was it 13? No, 13 was the World Series.
Red Sox.
Yeah, so Red Sox. So, but anyway, he was back in town. Opens the door. He's like, "Let me guess, you're Albert Pujols." And my son turns around. He's like, "You're me."
Yeah,
so
cool.
It was pretty cool, man, that he was actually there and giving out candy to the kids. So, and we briefly touched on this yesterday, a little bit ago. But you, Freeze, Descalzo, Allen, all these guys. I mean, what was that like? Again, growing up together for you guys.
No, it was everything. Like I said, we had a group of guys that you could lean on, for anything that we needed, and we in the minor leagues, especially back then, like there wasn't DoorDash, there weren't Ubers and stuff, right? So like a lot of times we'd have to walk somewhere, or like figure out where food is. So like we just spent so much time together, just doing like fun, boring things that's super cool. Where like it forced us to kind of just hang out and be sociable together. Yeah. So I just look at the bond now; it's super cool, and like to see all of us now with our families and like our kids all know each other, and like we all hang out and still see each other, which is something that's really cool.
That's awesome. Talk about Tony La Russa.
Oh man. I mean, he was tough, but it was the best thing for me. Tony taught me so many different things about the game, about life, about preparation. So it's a joy every time I get to see him and just kind of converse with him and talk to him. So he popped in town a couple of weeks ago, which is super cool to see him. But just a tremendous amount of respect. And, when you look at what he's done in his career, it's just remarkable, right? Like what he means to the game, what he's done for the game. I can't say enough good things about Tony La Russa.
And you guys, if I remember correctly, did you know he was done after 2011?
We didn't know. We found out that day. They brought us in the weight room, and he kind of just let us know that.
This is after you won the World Series?
After we won the World Series, yeah.
Wow. I didn't know if you guys knew or didn't know. Yeah. Anything behind the scenes that you would say that the typical fan wouldn't know? This is what's going on during a game, preparation for a game. Like what are those things? Like some big point that sticks out that people have no idea about.
I think just the preparation, right? We games at 6:45, let's say, right? Like guys are at the field at 1 o'clock, right? Yeah. Like just working on the craft to get ready for that 6 o'clock game. Same thing with coaches. I mean, I think I'll highlight the coaches right now. Like coaches get there earlier than the players do, right? And they're making sure the players are prepared. So people ask me all the time, like, what's easier, coaching or playing? And I say, obviously, playing is hard because you got to hit a 97-mile-an-hour fastball, or you got to go make a play out there. But I can control everything I'm doing as a player, right? As a coach, I'm trying to get to a group of people, right? So I can't go out there and do the work for you. I have to make it in a way where, hey, like this would be good for you to do, or hey, I have to address you when you do something wrong in the middle of the game. I have to hold you accountable to what you just did wrong, so that it won't happen again. So it's a lot trickier when it comes down to kind of some of the nuances of what goes on with the stuff.
Talk about any of the fears you put in your mind over your career. How many of them blew up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
Yeah, I think the biggest fear for me really was like, I have a great chance to take care of my family with what I'm doing right now. And there's so many things that go on, right, that are out of control. Injuries, there's, rosters, there's just so many things that go on. But I think that was my biggest fear, was like, how am I going to provide for my family? And this is like my biggest ticket right now. And so I need to take full advantage of this and hopefully it will work out.
Yeah. So. And I think the learning behind that for me, what I'm hearing is, and I ask that question all the time, is we put these things up here. This is a dangerous spot, right? Is they rarely, if ever, blow up to the magnitude that we put them in our minds to be, right? So it's almost like have faith and trust that you're going to go out and you're going to provide for your family, right? But it's hard in the moment. So I don't know if there was anything you did there to have the faith and have the trust that it's going to work out. Was there a process that you used for that?
Well, I think the whole thing is, like you said, just putting my head down and going to work and being curious, right? So trying to ask the questions that will lead to me having success. Instead of just saying like, oh, I hope or and I wish this will happen. It's like, all right, how can I make this happen? And a big thing is just being curious and asking people that have done this before you, right? It's a cheat sheet. So I was always with veteran players, people that are older than me. I'd always ask them all the time about like what made them successful, how did they do it, how did they combat situations or whatnot, and I just try to use that in my own life.
So baseball takes a lot of consistency, obviously, 162 games in a year. What advice would you have for the business person for consistency?
Yeah, it's the same thing,
same
right?
Thing, the hard
same
work,
thing.
right?
Hard work and your time. Use your time wisely. Sector out those times so that you have time for yourself is one big one, and then so that you have time to accomplish what you need to accomplish in the day, right? Because life gets hectic, right? There's kids, there's situations you're trying to provide. There's a lot of things that go on, but trying to find the balance is the hardest thing in life, right? So I think it's just making the time so that you have time to do all these things. Like for me, I'm an early riser. Like I like to get up early. I need time to myself. I like to knock things out. That way I have time to do things I need to do and things don't pile up on me.
Yep. So talk about, here's one of the things I love about you is there's a lot of athletes and you've been very successful and you've done well, but you also want to do more for the community, which I love, right? That's one of the values of our firms is community. You have an event September 17th, but before you even go to the event, talk about why you're doing that, because you could easily just step back and not do the things that you're doing, right? But why are you choosing to move forward and step forward and be a bigger part of the community?
Yeah, I think it's something that was instilled to me through my family, and just understanding that not everyone's born into circumstances that are set up for success, right? And even in my life, like I had a lot of positive people in my life that helped me get through things that if I wouldn't have had in my life, then who knows where I would have ended up. So, anytime I have the chance to do that for somebody, I think that's what this world's, that's what life's all about. So for me, it's just very important to understand that. Like, I hate when people say like, oh, well, look at that guy over there. And it's like, dude, you have no idea how he grew up. You don't, you don't know what his family life was like. Did he have, role models? Did they have structure? Were there even, did they even have 3 meals to eat every single day? Like you have no idea what some people go through in life. So anytime I have a chance to kind of help in my way that I can, then I'm going to try to help. Yeah.
So talk about your event on September 17th.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we have our 3rd annual Golf and Games event over at Family Golf and Learning Center. Partner with Daniel Descalzo's co-hosting it along with Adam Betts, who's the owner over there. And it's something we started 3 years ago. Just a fun family event that we can go out there and support a good cause. So benefits the Jay Family Foundation that we do a ton of work in St. Louis and in Miami. But then also PGA Reach, which is the foundation arm of the PGA Foundation. Ozzie Smith's involved with that, which is pretty cool. And then this is kind of cool how it all ties in together. And then we also do the Boys and Girls Club. I grew up going to the Boys and Girls Club in Miami, so I have it's a big special part of my heart for that. And but it's pretty cool. So PGA Reach is actually building a youth community center on the Boys and Girls Club property. So it kind of all tied in together. Wow. So this is pretty cool. So this the money raised is going to help that project. That's going to ultimately give kids an option, give kids somewhere to be after school, keep them off the streets, keep them out of trouble. And, that's all we can do for the youth is really just be those role models and guide them.
And where do they find more about the event on September 17th?
Yeah, so we're actually going to release tickets this week on Friday. So Friday tickets are going to go live. But if you're interested in sponsoring, you can email jfamfoundation@gmail.com and just get some more information. I have some stuff written on my Instagram as well, Jon Jay. There's some more information on there, but it's a fun event. We have a closest to the pin competition, a long drive competition going on, and then the closest to the pin competition, you'll get to square up against myself and Daniel Descalzo in the finals. There's some pretty cool giveaways.
That's awesome.
This is a fun night. We have a DJ, food, drinks, the whole deal, and then like I said, it's just a fun night to raise money for a good cause.
So you can see here the future greater than your past. This is our logo. That's our mission statement as our firm, Visionary Wealth Advisors, is achieving a future greater than your past. And so when you hear that, and then you tie that into your family foundation, what's the future? How's it going to be greater than the past?
Oh, the future is just, creating, creating leaders out there. And that's what I want to do with my kids and just with the youth and, anyone that I come in contact with, just creating leaders. I believe the more leaders we have out there, the better this world will be. So, and just trying to make the world a better place than we got it, right? It's that simple, that's why I coach, right? I love the game of baseball. I want to see, guys have success and do better than I did, right? Yeah. I want to see Victor Scott win Gold Gloves and I want to see guys get big contracts and be able to take care of their families and then go to their community and have an impact in their community. So it's really about just making sure that the world's in a better place tomorrow than it was yesterday. I
love it. Jon Jay, thanks so much, man. Keep making an impact, and thanks for being with us on the Circuit of Success.
All right, thanks for having me.